Hey everyone, I hope you all had an amazing day and welcome back to Theonopolis. So today we are finishing up the corner building and we are starting on the hotel that's going to be on the other side of the main street. But first I have to mention that if you kept a close eye on the title of this video and the last video, and well, also a little bit of the thumbnail, but if you kept a close eye on it, you might have realized something has changed between today and when it was uploaded. Because we're building a staff area right now, or like the corner where a staff building is, and I spent way too long building a fence. So then I quickly, or not quickly actually, like very late realized like, oh wait, we still have that hotel to build. But I didn't want to keep this staff area, or this, well, basically just this fence, off screen because I was really proud of how it turned out. So yeah, we're now going to spend, instead of the planned 2 episodes on the main street, we're going to spend 3 episodes on the main street. Just so that I can finish everything and I'm not like keeping everything off screen, because then it will just be like, yeah, I built 3 buildings. You might never see them. Anyway, so just to keep it short, we're going to spend 1 extra episode on the main street. Might be a good thing because I can show some more things than what I originally planned to. Might also be a bad thing because I'm a squirrel, so probably when we're building the hotel, I'm probably also going to zone out and build some very minute detail and completely lose myself in it. But I'm really happy with how this staff area turned out actually, because when you build a staff area, you, well, theme park wise, you want it to be, you know, not really attention drawing. Like, you don't want it to be a center of attention, you want it to be actually like really quickly forgotten. I think in like Disney they have like a special color for like areas that people or guests shouldn't focus on, and they, well, it works. But of course with Theonopolis, the idea is that it is a city, that it's a little bit more, you know, not very theme park, but really more city, as I said. So I didn't want to have like a special color for staff areas. Also, I'm kind of scared that if I start like retouching more of Theonopolis, then, well, then this would be a lifelong series. Well, until my PC blows up. But anyway, so for this staff area, I thought like, alright, how can I make this secluded but not like be completely out of tone with like that city feeling? So then I just thought, alright, we can have it fenced off and just like a complete wooden fence and completely closed off. But then I thought like, alright, but if I add like a huge door to like facilitate the pathing going through it, that will make it stand out even more. So then the idea was just have a sliding door, which actually turned out somewhat okay. And then behind the door just add a little bit of color, add a little bit of foliage, and just, yeah, just make the place feel alive, but not really like you need to look at it. Just really forgettable in a way. But you guys know me, I'm really bad at making things forgettable. But anyway, so for the rest of this building, because it is, well, it's going to be probably at the workshop tomorrow or this evening or night. Somewhere around now and tomorrow it's going to be live. But I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I try to not use any like Teammate Toolkit items, though eventually I couldn't, well, I actually don't know for sure if I've recorded it, but when I built like the roof, because, you know, when you have like a flat roof and a large tower next to it, and obviously you're going to add a door to the tower because then the roof has some kind of functionality, then I wanted to have something on the roof of like storage space, or basically almost use it as like a balcony. And that's the only place where one well, actually 3 Team Maker Toolkit items were used, or at least 3 of the same item, which is basically just some kind of hanging cloth just to, you know, make it a little bit alive. But again, back to what we're actually building, because as I said before, I spent way too long on this. It's just, it is, as I said, it's a staff area, so you shouldn't really worry about it too much. Like, you should try to hide it away. But we all know how that ends up when I try to make something subdued. It never works out right. I should really stop trying. Like, I think well, I wanted to say like this is the favorite like corner of this building, but that's actually just like, yeah, I haven't actually recorded my favorite part of the building. But it's just like a small market area right next to the bread shop with the name that I won't ever be able to pronounce. And also, I quickly wanted to say, yeah, I'm recording or I have recorded finishing up the corner building just because I wanted to give myself 0 excuses for, you know, finishing up a building, because I've gone back into Theonopolis and just seen like all the times that I've said like, oh, I'm going to finish it off screen. Yeah, at least 25% of those buildings are still not completely finished. However, the palace is slowly getting finished. Slowly. So, probably around the 70th episode is going to be finished. Yeah, I'm really not doubting that we are going to hit 100 episodes. Especially if I keep doing things like this. But now we're finally at the tower. Which again is just a way to add a little bit more height and volume, and well, not volume actually, I add mostly just height and a little bit more of like a dynamic feel to the building without adding that much volume, because it's just a 4x4 tower and it's a little bit higher. I think Blanco scaling is like 6 meters higher than the rest of the building, but because it's just there, it's just like a little bit more of like a busy building in a way, or like a little bit more of a dynamic building, because there's like extensions to the building, there's a tower to the building. It's not just a basic square. That's like the greatest tip for like making a somewhat dynamic building. Just like add a tower, add like a piece of the building that's like slightly, I don't know, slightly off of the main grid. Yeah, I sometimes can give some advice when building, mostly not. Most of the time I'm just like an incoherent mess. But yeah, again, to make a somewhat dynamic building, just add like a tower that is slightly off the grid, extension to the building that is like not completely like blocky, that's just like, I don't know, turned 90 degrees or 70 or 50. Yeah. And then, as I said, building the sort of, well, actually, I wanted to say building the rooftop, but no. I really like these noses though. And yes, they are noses. They are statue noses. But I don't know where I've seen somebody use them, but I just thought like, this is the piece that can really, well, not, well, how do I say this? It's just a piece that looks great and actually works great with this Grecian architecture. And now we're finally on to the hotel. As I said before, the corner shop took way longer than I thought it would. But for the hotel, we're going to tackle 2 areas today, which is basically the entrance courtyard and the restaurant. Yes, this hotel has a restaurant. Unlike, well, the other also has a restaurant, but not like a functional one as in like Blanco restaurant. But for this hotel, it's actually a little bit more historically accurate because it has a courtyard. And the courtyard is really like the main feature of the hotel. And you might also realize, well, I actually realized that, you know, when you have a courtyard, or at least when a Grecian building had a courtyard, most of them had, you really want to draw all like the attention to the courtyard. Actually, the outside of this courtyard, or basically this building, is kind of plain. Really, all like the details and such are built in the courtyard, because that's like the main area where you would like, I don't know, welcome guests, or like probably welcome guests. Just, I mean, you could also have like parties in there, but then this courtyard is way too small for that. Actually, it's like, it's small on Blanco scale, but in real life scale it's like a room or area of like 4 by 8 meters, so it's not that small, but just in Blanco scale it's small. But anyway, back to the courtyard, because it was a little bit annoying, because it's just like, we all hate the Blanco camera, I think we can say. It's just, well, not hate, but severely dislike. Or at least when it doesn't do what we want it to do. So, especially in like a confined space such as this courtyard, it was, how do I say this correctly? It was a pain in the, well, I think we can all fulfill that sentence. But yeah, when you're building in a small area, the Blanco camera kind of wants to just break out of that area. And then it doesn't work. But also I wanted to make the, well, upper part, or like the roof, sort of roof of the sides of the courtyards, also be like traversable, like almost like a balcony or a walkway. But again, all the attention really is drawn into the courtyard. Most of the details are in the courtyard. I actually finally made some kind of like small shrine in the courtyard, and I'm really happy with that, because, you know, I don't know if it's like a Greek thing or a Roman thing, but most of those courtyards had like the family shrine, or like the household shrine of like, I don't know, like there were like thousands of like household deities. Like we have the big like 13, like Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter and all that, but then there were also like 1,000 local household deities that might have been like worshipped in Athens but not in Sparta, or, you know, like every small region, like maybe even every small village had their own local deities. But of course, because they're small statues and such, they aren't as impressive. Well, this shrine of course hasn't gotten any statues, because yeah, as I said, they would be like the size of, I don't know, like a Barbie doll, or even smaller maybe even. So yeah, not as impressive, but just like a small little detail that adds a little bit of like realism and accuracy to this building. Though of course the mostly like the architectural style also draws heavy inspiration from Renaissance and just, yeah. Anyway, now we're finally building that small shrine, and it's really simple. It's just a window with some candles and a little bit of a flower basket. Like, everything else is really grand and everything, and then you have like this small shrine with some candles. Yeah, and also that large door. I don't know why, but I started to really like using those doors, or at least that door, because it's big, but not like, not too big. Like I wanted to have like some kind of other word to describe them with, but yeah. Anyway, so it's a little bit more like, well, it's a little bit of an intimidating building, because you need to really look past the somewhat harsher and less like decorated and fancy outer wall to actually go into the hotel, but again, it's a little bit more historically accurate. A little bit. Though most of the time, well, as I said, the building is basically facing inwards, like it's all, like all the decorations, or like most of the decorations are facing inward. But probably like with this hotel, like there's like a major, huge extension to the left side of it. Usually those would be like proportioned to basically grow out from the courtyard, so that basically would probably like retain like its, I wanted to say circle, but basically have that square-ish built. But then again, it just adds a little bit more dynamic. It just adds a lively feel to the building if it's not like a square or a basic rectangle. But yeah, here you can really see like only like small windows on the outside, and the larger windows are really only facing the courtyard. And if the windows are facing outwards, they're closed, or they're small, as I said. And again, using those noses, because I really like how they look. Somewhat understated, or at least for what I built. At least the outside, I would say. But next off, we're starting on the restaurant, which was kind of a later addition to the entire building. And it's a little bit like, I wouldn't say it's like at like a 90-degree angle or something like that. It's just on a different angle than the rest of the building, again to add that feeling of like a little bit more of a dynamic feel, not just blocky buildings. But I've also realized, like looking at the hotel, like even though it's not finished yet, and then looking at the corner building and then looking inward to the main street, you can really see that like some techniques that I've used when I started building Theonopolis have really changed. Like looking at the hotel and the corner building and then looking at the main street, I actually like the main street looks a little bit bland. Again, I'm not going to revamp the entire main street, because then we would be here probably for way too long. But it's just nice to see how things have changed over time. I mean, we've already spent like half a year in Theonopolis by now. It's in a way good to see that like things have changed. And I don't know why, but I've always feel like I shouldn't really say like, oh, I've gotten better or so, or I don't know why, but that always feels weird to me to say that, like, oh, I've gotten better at building. But truth be told, I really have. Like, the buildings in the main street are actually a lot more blocky than what I would build now. Also, they are like one of the few buildings that are like really still connected to each other. Like the hotel, the corner building, and the station are all loose buildings. In a way, more historically accurate, because, well, most buildings were actually just, you know, built apart from each other. But yeah, it's just to see the change is actually quite welcome. Again, also adds a dynamic feel if you have like different styles of buildings like right next to each other. But I should probably talk about the restaurant, which, yeah, it's not the most like, well, I wanted to say not the most like iconic, but then it's iconic in its own way. Like what I'm building right now with like the sort of like balcony actually has like the same stone structures as the castle, just to, you know, not make it into too harsh of a transition between castle and main street. And that's like another tip I would say. Like today's video has 2 tips, which is rare. But to have like a smooth transition between buildings in a park, have like one building, if you have one building that has a really iconic style, and then you want to have like a transition building in between, have like a few pieces of the iconic building in that transitional building. So that's like not too harsh of like boom, other style. Yeah, so that's basically what I've used in somewhat of the balcony. But then I wanted to add a little bit of height back into the restaurant because, as I've said before, the extension to the left side of the hotel is huge. Or at least not like huge as in volume wise, but mostly in height. So I wanted to have some kind of like little bit of like height added to the hotel without making it larger or like really taller by adding more walls to it. So first I wanted to have like the same idea with the balcony that I've just built, where there's just pillars and such, and actually I'm going to also add a small roof to the balcony. But then I thought like, yeah, that's just going to be too massive. So basically just 2 or 4 front pillars, add a lot of flowers to it. But anyway, as I said, added a small roof to the balcony area just to, I don't know, have a little bit of like a different structure, or not structure, but a different material used in the building, so that's not like all stone. Again, another way to add some kind of dynamic feel to the building. Don't use all the same materials. Like, have some wood into the building. This video is weirdly full of tips. Well, full of tips. For me, full of tips. Like, we have 3 tips right now. Have some things off-grid when you build something. Have different materials, and just... There was another tip, but my squirrel brain has already forgotten it. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next video. And I wish you all an amazing weekend. Until next Wednesday. Bye bye.